Thank you guys for all coming out on Saturday. This gallery has been under construction, and Sarah's been very grateful over her time and letting us finish before we hung on the artwork.
It's a necessity.
Yeah, there was something I was going to say that was really thoughtful and nice.
I think we need to say thank you to
No.
Ray. Pulled off all of this, the floor, the walls, everything, and it's very exciting to be the first show.
Yes.
And the museum. It's next.
Stacey and I have been through some dramatic personal interactions with the public recently, so that's been very interesting if you know about that. But one thing I want to know or say about Sarah before we get started is, you know, a lot of she's been working with these artists since the 70s. She's been here. How long have you been back to Alabama?
2017.
So 2017, she's been back at ground floor, and I am very grateful for the relationship we have. It's very give and take with constructive criticism and everything like that. So I have my marching orders for what I need to fix for you guys to leave today, and it was all smiles. There was no anger, and that's what I value about Sarah is we can have this conversation. So thanks again for coming out.
And he has done amazing. So we're going to take about 5 minutes about 8 artists to talk and sort of move around. And Bethany Moody is going to start here right now with her piece.
Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming out. My name's Bethany Moody. This is my sculpture. It's called Learning Loop. And I called it that because this is a learning object. I treat a lot of my work as an opportunity to learn new techniques. So for this sculpture, I was teaching myself ankle band weaving. And that is a weaving technique that is done on the loom that the sculpture is positioned on. It's a really narrow band that traditionally has been used for belts, for swaddling babies, for carrying grains with a basket, you know, all of these sort of functional purposes. But they've also always been really decorative. So I wanted to learn this technique. Particularly, you can kind of do this pickup method where you sort the threads and make images with them. And I was interested in letter forms. So I kind of started off the band, learning the alphabet on the ankle loom. I made a miniature version of this first, miniature band and miniature sculpture. And those ended up, they're in Pittsburgh right now in a kind of group exhibition. And then I decided to scale it up. So this is, I think it's 4 times the size of the original work. And I scaled up the weaving as well. And so treating this like a learning object, and most of my work as a learning experience. I'm often thinking about where learning occurs, what sort of formats we're encountering knowledge in our early life. And so I've gone down this rabbit hole of thinking about toys and how toys are made and the aesthetics of toys and what they teach us. So I'm starting to pull some of those aesthetics into my work a little bit. Traditionally, toys often teach us how to behave socially and culturally, right? They might teach us gender, they might teach us how to work efficiently, right? Maybe you're a little boy and you're given a tool set as a boy, and that's how you know, oh, I'm boy, I play with tools now, right? Or you're given toy cars. A boy's toy car looks very different from a girl's toy car, right? Girls get the hot rod Barbie, you know, fuchsia pink. She's in her little toy house, and boys get the Hot Wheels or Tonka trucks, right? So I'm interested in how toys teach us these sort of in a very subversive way, these ideas about how we should live in culture. So I'm kind of exploring that in this sculpture a little bit. I've got the band that I learned on, but then I've also got these cars driving across it. And it's sort of progressing in a linear way, right? It's following a path. And in a way, I'm kind of quoting, I don't know if y'all ever interacted with those carpets when you were a kid that have the roads on them, and you could drive little cars on them. symbol in our culture of convenience, of aspiration, of necessity, but also it's sort of like cheerful and playful at the same time. So I think I like these symbols that contain really complex ideas that seem kind of simplistic and childlike at first, but then when you think deeper into ideas of productivity or of efficiency, the car starts to speak to different things. I wanted to sort of pair it with the loom that I made the band on, because I'm thinking about this like beginning and end. The loop itself has a beginning and end, and the work has a beginning and end, but I'm thinking about it also as like a lineage, like parent and child, where the loom is the parent and the sculpture is the child. So yeah, let me know if y'all have any questions, but that's my work.
Thank you. Next, we're going to turn to Ms. Misty Bennett, who's going to talk about her piece, her painting right here.
Hi everybody, my name is Misty Bennett, and I'm going to talk about my painting, Mystic Pile, which is right here. So feel free to come closer if you want to. I feel like shouting into the void, but that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, well, we have 5 minutes, so I have to give you the brief history. But basically, every painting that I make, I feel like is a response to the painting I made before that. So I'll talk just a second about the painting I made before this, which is I've been working with this kind of cast of characters, these abstract forms for a couple of years now. And in the painting before this, I made sort of a catalog of those, you know, like, okay, here they all are, and this is what they can do. And then in this painting, I was, you know, thinking about how they sort of live in my head, which is more in just like a big jumbled heap, and I, you know, think about and use them for different things. Because my favorite way to paint is, you know, really just out of my head, not looking at references. I don't like feeling tied to that or feeling obligated to make something look, represents another object. I like to have the freedom and the creativity to make what I want of it. So with Mystic Pile, I kind of just stack these things up in a little precarious heap. And I love playing with the qualities of oil paint. So obviously color is a big part of my work, and playing with different saturations of color, but also the opacity of the paint. So I wanted to have some objects that are transparent, and then others that are really heavily impasto textured. I like to use things like a fork in there to apply them, and just really play with all the different things that oil paint can do. And the title, Mystic Pile, really came from the idea that art is kind of magical. The way that you can take these raw materials that are sort of like nothing when you get them, and I feel like that's a little bit of what Stacy was talking about with her work too. And then through some sort of internalized process, you take that stuff and you mix it together and you put it on a surface, and it becomes something, a whole kind of world that you can create. And that's one of my favorite things about painting in general. With this pile, I wanted to put it in a kind of place, a setting that was a little bit reminiscent of a landscape. So this is supposed to look kind of like you're looking out at a mountain landscape with that kind of atmospheric perspective. So you see these undulating waves of space that are receding. So that way I can play with things that I like to do as an artist, like the creation of space, but not feel tied to a certain specific reality. And so this is really a kind of creative play where I am just exploring shapes. For me, the shapes all have a personal kind of narrative where, you know, certain spiky shapes might be out there to do certain things, and then other shapes are more enveloping or softer, or, you know, they have different kinds of personalities to me. I don't necessarily think that's something that, as the viewer, you have to understand. Hopefully you can just appreciate them for where they are at. But I know in my mind, I'm always making little kinds of narrative stories about that. And I definitely started out painting in a much more naturalistic kind of way. I've always, I think everybody is sort of trained that way. And then over time, I really made a conscious effort to move farther and farther away from that and into abstraction. But the color is actually kind of recent I'm saying recent, I don't know, maybe it's within the last like 8 years that my work has gotten more and more and more colorful.
I love it.
Thank you.
I mean, artists can be scary colors.
Yeah. Neutral is pretty safe.
Talking about being afraid of color.
Oh, yeah.
But I do love, like, in your work, like, the more I look at it, the more I notice, like, these, like, really small little interactions that each piece has with each other. And especially, like, down here, like, it's kind of made look like wood, but then it has that, like, soft touch.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just, like, a lot to look at, a lot to explore.
I like to be playful with it, and yeah, like you spend a lot of time creating the illusion of like a wood grain, but then to make it look like it's actually squishy is kind of just fun to me, and it is, they're meant to be playful, and yeah, I would encourage you when you get a chance to look at them up close, because I do try to play with textures.
Thank you so much. All right. So, Nancy Barnhart is going to talk about her print right here.
This one is no color. But, this is actually an earlier picture of mine that my background is in archaeology and map making. And so this shows, yes, absurd. And this kind of strips all the meaning away from traditional maps because, it's all about the shapes. And I inverted the Yucatan Peninsula here, and that's the Florida Peninsula. Put it together as a goal. And I did it with a toothbrush. So I took the tush and basically just made stencils with maps that I cut out, cut carefully, and you can see some of the stencil marks that I just left, faint, and then worked around them, and then I rubbed in some of this. This was done on a lithographic stone, and I haven't had access to one of those in a while. I thought it kind of fit the framework of the show in a way, so, but it's more of a traditional process. There's a lot to it, so I would like to be able to have access to that again, because there's not many of them left, the stones are hard to find, and they're only made in one place in the world, Germany. But I really love map making, and I love that our world has got so many shapes. And I remember that when I was a student for the first geology class, studying plate tectonics, I was just, wow, I thought it fits so well, all these different shapes, you think the map makers would have noticed it first, when they first started making their maps. But anyway, in itself, I love the fact.
Any questions?
What does some of your other work look like? Is it usually one stuff or is it something else as well?
All kinds of, I just like to explore different areas, so I do side edit types like those, and there I love doing photography based on
Hey everybody, my name is Matthew Barton. I am a sculptor and ceramicist. I'm actually was one of Stacy's first students at UAB. So if you don't like it, this is my work.
It's my problem.
It's your fault. So a little bit about me. I'm from Alabaster, Alabama. So about 35 minutes south of Birmingham. I was raised on a small farm. We grew flowers where I work today, and I was also raised Catholic. And so there's this. So being raised Catholic, it's a very how would you say it? It's a very like action-based faith, and also as someone who was raised Catholic, I am no longer Catholic like most people. But and so I never really that connection that a lot of people seem to share or feel in the church. I never really felt, but I did feel it when I was out on our farm working and having these meditative, repetitive tasks like swinging a hammer or building these kind of building structures and things like that. And so these forms, these pieces I make, these large ceramic vessels, I just call them vessels. They're kind of acting as a record of themselves being made. And so, they're all coil built. I don't really like working on the wheel, but the way rolling a coil out, just kind of rolling out a little snake and patting it onto the first one and then smoothing it on. And so where a lot of people often, once they smear it on, they blend the two pieces together, they'll blend them out, making a nice polished surface. I wanted to leave that texture on because if you look closely, this is actually the mark that my thumb leaves every time it's being smoothed on. So my thumbprint is all over this piece. And so, with them, it's on a big banding wheel, so it's moving in a circle and doing these repetitive tasks. It becomes this really meditative, reflective process. And so whatever I'm dealing with or whatever I'm going through becomes imbued into that piece. And so the thumbprint becomes another marker of that. And these forms, this form came from, this was when I was in grad school, and I had access to big kilns, and so I wanted to make big stuff to fit into big kilns because I wasn't paying the gas bill. And so and I was also heavily influenced by the artist June Kaneko, who makes these incredible 10 to 15-foot tall ceramic pieces. He's an incredible artist. And the base is red and white oak, which is some of my favorite wood, but it's also the type of trees that I grew up around down in Alabaster. So kind of leaving them in this what's called two-faced boards. So the top and bottom have both been cleaned up so they can rest evenly, but leaving the roughs on the outside to kind of reference that idea of labor in practice, and also just make them a little bit more stable to stack on. Any questions?
How much does that weigh?
Oh.
I mean, not exactly.
I would say
Is it really heavy?
maybe about 90
Ray, how
pounds.
much does it weigh?
So Ray had to move it.
Oh yeah.
So it's at the thick walls, this thick?
Well, I was in grad school, so I was also broke. So I was trying to make the walls as thin as possible to get as much, yardage out of the clay as I could.
Yeah.
So it's probably about that. I would say it's probably about 80 pounds.
What do you call that?
It's supposed to be. It's a black underglaze that I just got from Amico, but depending on how you apply it and how you fire it and how I let it weather outside, it's changed because it's only low fire. Thank you.
Yeah, I've never worked with ceramics
Oh,
at
it's a
all,
good time.
so yeah,
You should check it out.
it's about time.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. We're gonna look this way, and Shori is going to be over here. Shori. Sorry. Shori. already said it. Excuse me. Oh, I got this screwed on the phone. Maybe get close to you. And you all can move in or short.
Hi everybody, my name is Teresa. This piece is called Everything in My Apartment. Basically, I can just talk through the technique that I use to make these, which won't take very long. And maybe I idea what's going on. So this is, some people have mistaken this for a painting. It's not a painting, it's a machine woven tapestry. So that I kind of hand beaded to make these tiers, but I made the image on the computer with this same program. Got a tapestry of it, or like edited, got a tapestry of it, and then sewed on it. So it's a lot of like back and forth, like hand work to machine. And this is a model of my apartment building. I live in, I don't know if you guys live in 5 Point South, but in Birmingham, but it's kind of like a wacky, it's like a wacky place, I think, just with the apartment, like it's kind of weird. So I feel like I really wanted to, I guess, remake it and kind of represent it the way I live there. It's called Everything in My Apartment because it's containing, it doesn't just have like real stuff, but it also has like other little things, like collages of me in the work that I did with green screen, which is something I'm very interested in. Videos of me that I like sourced from my computer that are kind of unrelated, but just things that I've accumulated over time. You know, a pack of cigarettes, me in my old apartment, this guy. So, you know, just a lot of stuff like that. Basically, all that's to say, this work is about containment. I made it at the end of a tumultuous relationship. And so it's really thinking about being contained, but also the need to be contained and the feeling of being contained, and kind of this one area of the street, which is my world sometimes. You know, I don't really leave. I'm contained in that like a stretch of sidewalk. So that's what I was thinking. Is that 5 minutes? Should I go on or should I?
Ask me any questions, but speak up a little bit.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Where are you from, Alabama?
I'm from, well, I've lived a few places. I'm from Baltimore, I live in Pittsburgh, I live in Rhode Island, but my family's from here. So I just recently came down here after I finished. That's cool.
Okay.
What about utilizing yourself as subject matter? Like, what is that about?
Yes, thank you. So one reason I use myself as subject matter is because I feel like I'm a couple of reasons. I'm a very kind of introspective kind of person. I kind of run over my thoughts over and over and over. I don't want to say self-centered, but I grew up kind of isolated, so I was the only person who I was interacting with most of the time. So also throughout my career as an artist, I feel like I'm still a very isolated person, some kind of by choice. So I find it easier to work with my own image because I can control my own image better than I can control, I can't control another person's image, but I can control mine. And I can take a video myself anytime, anywhere. So, and I guess also in terms of like maturity, I feel like it's a very, I don't know, like, Freudian thing. There's psychoanalysis, like there's something, you know what I mean? Like observing yourself from the outside, or like otherwise, like removing yourself from your body to look at yourself at the same time. So I guess like depersonalizing. In a way that works, it works for me.
Thank you so much. We're actually going to go to the other side of the room, straight across to the painting. And any of us. We'll go this first. I'm sorry. No, sort of move in again. And any of us is going to talk about her work.
Hi, my name is Anya Platt. This is my painting called Daydream #1. It's from this body of work I've been working on called Daydream. So the first one was Daydream #1. It's about, most of my work is really influenced by my love of the sunlight. I grew up in Senegal and I was always like sitting on top of the roof of my apartment, drinking coffee, just feeling like the heat radiating through my body. So this body of work is about kind of sitting in that moment and feeling invited to enter into this like pocket of reality where I'm free to see how saturated the colors are and how the shadows become patterns and things like that. I'm also influenced by the literary tradition of magical realism and the way that it treats like these fantastical things happening in reality as something that's really normal and but also kind of symbolic of what's going on. Yeah, but I didn't want to talk too long so that you guys had a lot of time for questions if you wanted to ask some.
Is there a question?
Well, it's not a question or comment. I just think it's awesome how you mastered this illusion of, you know, that sheer cover, you know, it's just beautiful. My daughter just fell in love with the work when she saw it. I'm gonna have to buy her one. Yeah, no, it's just enough.
Is there any other question?
Do you do windows as your world subject, or is this just like a one-off, or do you do other items and then?
It's kind of the take that I'm on right now. So I'm working on this body of work for maybe 2 years now, and they're all windows with the curtains in front, and the sun is kind of like coming in and bleeding through the curtains and like filling them up with light so that the light kind of obscures what's behind, but also it's also part of the subject, and then the background is also part of the subject. I like that back and forth.
Does it take a long time to paint something like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do it. Also, I kind of paint it in layers, and since I'm using oil paint, I have to wait for the paint to dry, but I like the gumminess of the oil paint, and I can spread it on almost like a pastel. Yeah, but it works. I mean, because I have a day job, I can't just sit and paint the whole time. It helps me to say, okay, I have to stop and then wait for the thing to dry.
Is there anything in this painting or other ones that you did where it was a happy accident? Like it was like, you were like, oh, that works.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that. Like, and that's another thing I love about this subject matter is that I can play with letting the paint, the brush strokes show through. Like for example, the way that these shadows bleed across the cloth, the brush stroke quality enhances that. Or maybe not in this one, but in some of the others, I like to
today. So my most recent series of work I was including a lot of art historical references, particularly the early Renaissance, some of those like divine scenes, and this turning point between the advent of linear perspective and then the symbology of like the medieval era, where there's a weird kind of back and forth, kind of creating an in-between space, similar to what Ennio addressed, because that's something that I think I also have continued to be fascinated by in all of the artwork I've made. So this piece is called Anima Net, and anima is like the Greek word for life force. And so recently, well, since COVID, I would say, I've been kind of just compelled to really explore the, I guess, wonder, for lack of a better word. I shudder a little bit to use that word because it sounds cheesy, but it's something with that, with just the interconnectedness, patterns that repeat throughout nature, and trying to convey that feeling in a single moment on canvas. So there's a lot of discovery in the composition process, and additionally in the painting process, where I'm employing a lot of different techniques and languages, and then really kind of creating this other world that I want to feel alive. And so to that end, a lot of times the recent work will include water and light, and just I want it to feel verdant and kind of like it's continuing on. And I think because I began all of my paintings, I guess in earnest, I would say, as an adult, using Photoshop and learning really in the very early days of Photoshop, there's this inherent practical or technical, I guess I would say, residue of the digital, but then there's also a fascination for me with kind of the spiritual mythos surrounding technology and a lot of the aspirations of new technologies. So I think this shift towards more nature-oriented imagery makes a lot of sense, but then there's an inherent, I'm always going to have digital elements, I think, within my work, because of that just being so much a part of how I've made paintings in the past. So, and then with the borders, someone was asking about that earlier, that's a tendency, a lot of times I have like a back and forth between the intuitive and kind of the pre-planned, just like a lot of artists. And so I know part of it has to do with looking at illuminated manuscripts kind of in the more recent past. But additionally, I think it's sort of like a bridge between the viewer and the space that I'm creating. And it's almost like, especially with the rope, like painting it in this more realistic way, you're able to kind of make that transition between dimensions a little bit. It gives you that feel where you can kind of engage with that world, and that's something I'm always interested in trying to kind of play with, both on the canvas and like with the painting as an object. But happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Again, me. I'm not sure if I heard you right, because I couldn't hear really well, but do you formulate your pictures digitally and then you paint them?
So yes, I continue, I use Photoshop.
Yeah, so I use
and so
digitally sometimes.
A lot of it will be imagery that I've taken on my iPhone,
Yeah.
combining it into a kind of a
Manipulate
collage,
it. Yeah,
and
I got
trying
you.
to figure out what makes sense together, and kind of seeing what the possibilities are color-wise, but then having this back and forth a little once I've kind of come up with a sketch and composition, and discovering kind of like transitions and how things work, how realistic something should be or not.
3D with that hair and all those plants, they look like they're actually standing out. I don't know if it's my view.
Yeah, well, I like for there to be a tension between.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much. If artists here or talk about any of the work, just, one-on-one or whatever, because we like to talk about what we do. And there's a number of artists that are still here. And Marianne's is here, Renee's here, they're just a lot. Elizabeth is over there. I'm not seeing everybody. Chi is here, Chi is over there. So we would love. Okay, thank you so much.